To avoid that feeling of being trapped if you're in your 40s, 30s, even in your 50s, after living for several years abroad, and you really don't know how to make the move and go back home, or just plan on what your next steps will be. It must be very frustrating, but I'm going to share today 5 things, just 5 things. If this is the only video you watch this video. I'm going to share 5 points on what to start implementing from now to ensure that you don't have that empty feeling, especially those who have been abroad and feel like there's no hope and you feel like you're stuck abroad for good. As an immigrant, it's hard to explain that feeling of being empty, especially when you start getting to your late 30s and your 40s and your 50s and in your 60s. You've lived in a different country for close to 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, and some people 40 years, and you often forget what life could be back where you come from because you've spent most of your life in a foreign country. And don't get me wrong, you have made it. You are okay. You have an okay job. You can afford to pay your bills. You can even afford the holiday odd one here and there. You have a decent mortgage. Maybe it's been paid off. You've got some investment properties dotted here and there abroad. You look at your drive and you've got 2 cars, maybe luxurious cars, and it seems like you have it all. In fact, you think that this is what you wanted when you left your country. If you're African or from maybe Middle East, Eastern Europe, wherever you're from, and you're residing in a different country, and you have achieved all these material things, you might ask yourself, what next? What do I do next? And you can hardly explain that feeling of emptiness, that feeling of void that material things around you can never feel. But you cannot tell anybody because they'll say you're an ingrate. This is why you left your country, isn't it? For a better life, perhaps, and you sit quiet. And it's been 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and at some points, there's this bug that bites you. Maybe somebody makes a snide comment at work about the fact that you're different. You're an immigrant turned a national. And it reminds you, it hits you hard. You remember that, well, this is not home. If you feel this way, you're not alone. You are not alone. I have been sharing the way I have been feeling being in the UK for 20 years and lived most of my life here. I completely resonate with that feeling. But it's never too late, trust me. Even if you're in your 40s, don't feel that way. There are a lot of solutions. And I love you guys because I shared a few videos where you came to me, very fierce, claws out, ready to bite and say, oh, it's not really that bad. You know, I've made it. I love you guys because you don't only tell me how you feel in the comment section, you come to my inbox and you tell me ways that you've managed not to feel trapped. And that's why this channel, for me, is a happy place, because when I come with the problem of how I'm feeling, I often get a plethora of positive responses, and I develop this and I come and share back to the community, because not everybody can get their cameras and share. And the beauty of having a channel or a platform like this is you can be that medium. And just as an aside, the reason why I opened this channel was because I did not really see anybody like me on the internet, somebody who felt that after everything that they had accomplished in her 40s, a Black African immigrant in the UK, I still felt this void, and I felt like there was a lot more that I needed to achieve to actually feel fulfilled and purposeful. And that's why this channel was born. So I thank you guys all, because of you guys, I'm preparing a framework, or would I say like a blueprint for immigrants in different stages, those who just come in, those who've lived here and are about to get out, and the things to do to avoid that feeling of being avoid being trapped and not knowing how to live. I am going straight into the points now. So if this will interest you, the 5 things that you can start doing now, watch it to the end, because the last point is something that most of you will never think of, and I'm going to share that in this video. Let's get straight into the video now. The first thing I'll say is decide what you want. I know that this video is saying if you want to avoid being trapped. It's so easy to have these thoughts of saying, I want to go back home. You might just be homesick. You might just need a trip, a return ticket to where you come from. You might just want to eat the African delicacies. You might miss your extended families that you've not seen in years. That could be that feeling that you think you want to move back, but maybe you really don't want to. So the first thing to ascertain is, what do you want to do? My assumption is that if you've clicked on this video, you want the flexibility to be able to go back home and avoid the feeling of being trapped in a foreign land. But I just like to always check, because it's not always bad. You can actually make it okay here. Not everybody wants to go back, because like it or not, if you reflect and think about why you left your country, perhaps those problems are still there. You might be thinking about the electricity problem. If you're African, West African, we have that across a lot of the countries. I've had a lot of feedback about this, trust me. I want you to put out certain points, and it's really going to be bullet points. 1, security. How do you plan to mitigate that? 2, income. What do you plan to do for your income if you're looking to retire? 3, your profession. How do you plan to make sure that this is adaptable back home? 4, reverse culture shock. It's a big thing. Whenever I go home, I feel out of place sometimes because I sound different. I want to overcompensate, so I start really speaking slowly or too fast because the way I sound is a bit different. The way people handle me is different. So there's that aspect as well. And the last thing to think about are your financial ties abroad. If you have decided that you want to move back after weighing all the options I've shared, then let's go to part 2. Point 2 is understanding your values. I'm saying this because I have seen a lot of people tell me that they've packed up, they sold. In fact, I had a gentleman who I'll bring on this channel hopefully soon, who shared how he took the bold move because he was so frustrated after studying, working, saving, taking a very decent amount of money going back home, and he had to return. And his reasons, I think, is really tied to his values. You might think that you just want to go and you'll be happy, but your value is your core purpose. It's what makes you happy. It's what will make you fulfilled. It might not have anything to do with where you are geographically located. When I talk about knowing your value, I used to say this without really understanding what this means and how to actually ascertain or work out my value. But I found Dr. John Dermatini. His website has a free tool where it'll tell you what your core values are, because your core values will determine if, why, and how you would move. Because you might check and see that what you stand for, the core values that are important to you, could be family, it could be having a purposeful career, it could just be having peace. And when I say this, I mean it, because peace could just mean that you decide to go and stay in the countryside. I follow a lot of videos of people who, like a lady who is in, I think, Uganda, who moved from the town to the village. I just love her content because that's my kind of vibe. When I go on holidays, I prefer to stay in the suburbs. I live in the suburbs, so I love that kind of homely countryside feel. There are others who think that they want to go home, but when they think that they'll stay in the cities, they might as well live in New York or London. So knowing your core values, do you like family? Do you maybe like to walk in the woods? What are the things that will make you happy? Is it a job? Is it charitable work? Is it just having a sense of fulfillment, being a family person? When you understand this, it'll really tell you how to make your move back okay, so that you don't find yourself like a lot of people who've moved and had to come back. It's important. So I'm going to link his website. You can go and check, and I'm sure from that you can see a lot about your core values, principles, purpose, and fulfillment. That is important, and it cannot be underlooked. Guys, you need to understand that a plan is crucial in everything. I always say this, that once you start failing to plan, you're planning to fail. This is in everything in life. I believe so much in writing things down. The old-fashioned way. You're listening to me and thinking, who does that? Try it. Try it and come back to me. Take a paper and a pen and make a note of your plans. Don't just write your plans. I categorize them in 3 broad categories. I'll talk about my long and short-term goals. That is 1. I'll talk about how I am looking to achieve these goals. And lastly, the time frame. When I talk about long-term goals, for example, in this topic of moving back, I could start with saying, in 15 years, I am 41. By the time I get to 65, I don't want to be abroad. I want to have lived back home for at least 3 years to get accustomed to the life and be settled in my home. That is very long term. But a short-term plan could be, okay, I need to save up. I need to start saving up now. I need to have a goal that by the end of the year, I should have saved £10,000. Or better still, in the next 6 months, I should have acquired a new skill that would help me to leverage my income to make more for my move to be possible. Or a short-term plan could also mean that you get your kids back home to just start feeling how life is back, as we know. But if you have kids, it adds an additional problem or additional challenge, and you want them to be able to recognize where they come from. So if at some point they're not able to move back with you, depending on their ages, they can always find their roots back. Once you have your goals, the next thing is, how do you achieve it? And this is where the timeline comes in. It's always good to have time because it leaves you accountable, and that is why when you do this, you need an accountability partner. In everything else, I used to coach women on losing weight at some point, and I always said, once you have an accountability partner, it helps you get at least 70% close enough to somebody who will keep reminding you of why you did it in the first place. So have an accountability partner who you guys can touch base with the same sort of energy, the same sort of vision, that will understand your long and short-term goals and put you in check once you go off. So having this plan of action that would look like, okay, I have lived here for 20 years and I don't want to live here for the next 20 years. So you have 20 years to play with, and then you come forward and say, by the end of this year, I want to have 2 streams of income to make enough money so that I can start moving back. Another short term is that you might want to buy your first plot. You might want to go and start investing. All of this has to have time stamps so that you're not just talking from your, without me being rude, from your arse. Okay, that is what I'll advise. The 4th thing that you must remember for this to be possible is change. I don't know why a lot of us don't like change. We don't believe we don't like it, but as humans, we are so adverse to change. But I've learned, because if you guys know what's happening in my personal life, and I always say that it's like so turbulent, even if I wrote a script, you'll feel like I've made that up if I told you what was happening. Change has been at the forefront of my life lately. It's very scary. It leaves me feeling uncertain. It leaves me feeling very, very... Sometimes I feel like, why am I making changes now? Is it because I failed? No. It's because you're ready for the next move. You're ready for a new experience. You're ready for a new challenge, for a new chapter, for a new, completely new you. But change does not come without problems. Let me not use the word problems, challenges. Let's try to be positive. Change doesn't come with, it's not easy. But once you go past change, things will make a difference. I'm talking about change because I can tell you that if you have decided that you want to plot your way back without feeling trapped, you would have to make some major changes. For example, you might want to look around and say, I have a 5-bedroom house or a 4-bedroom house, and I have 2 kids, or I have 4 kids, 2 of them I've left home, and I'm an empty nester. Do I need this big house? You might want to rein it in and save up and maybe downsize, pull out equity, and your dream home is quicker to be achieved. You still have the home because your kids can use it for the future, and I'll go deeper into the things that I wish we could tell younger people about finances, and that will be the video after this. And if you want to watch that, I'll pin that somewhere. But those kind of changes don't come easy, because it's not just mentally challenging, it's physically to start thinking of moving, but it will get you closer to where you need to be. So people might want to even move to a bungalow from a house if you're older, in your 50s, your 60s, and that will give you enough income to get your home. That's the compromise. And others might start thinking of a complete career change. So if you're looking to go back in your active years, in your 40s, and you are maybe in the health sector, you might want to incorporate it with IT so that you can work anywhere in the world. You can do 6 months on, 6 months off. There's several things that can be done. You might start thinking about out of the box business. Many people don't have the business acumen and the business minds. We are tailored to work for others, and that's fine. But when you get to the point where you want to do things different, you want this big leap, you might need to move one step further and engage in business. Take the bold step. And the beauty about this channel is I've had people share their success stories. And in fact, I'm going to be sharing some business opportunities that you guys can all start, because I think we need to grow together like a community, and we lack information. We lack knowledge. They always joke that if you want to hide money, put it in a book, and Africans might not read it. So there are things, and I'll be sharing this. Trust me, just stick around this channel and some people will share the testimonials, things that you can do, low risk, businesses, and just generally be ready for change. Even with your kids, prepare their minds for change. And this is something that I can 100% relate to. I, as a child, my parents were abroad. I was born in a foreign land, and when I turned 11, 12, my parents decided that the time was up. They never felt at home, and they made the decision to move back so that we know our roots. But we were not pre-briefed, and that has affected me. I've said this before on this channel. I just found myself in a different country. We were meant to go on holidays like we did every year. We went on Christmas holidays back home, but this particular year it was a bit different because we packed more stuff, and like kids, like an 11, 12-year-old, I'd built friendships, I'd built relationships. I was used to this particular way of doing things, and suddenly I had to make this big change because my parents were no longer happy being abroad, and that left a big dent because we were not prepared. So the ways that you can prepare your kids for change is get them to understand where they're going to, what the pros and the cons. They'll probably love it, and I loved it, but it's just that sort of change. And with change, think also out of the box. Being a parent, don't be rigid. If you look at your kids, I always say that it's good to have the normal education, but think and look at your kids and start getting them to be more business savvy from a very young age, because that's where the world is moving to. Think about technology. Don't be so stuck and say, oh, you have to be a doctor, you have to be a lawyer, you have to be an engineer. Some of these fields will work if you want them to stay here, but right now Africa is developing very fast. There are fields like solar panel engineering, there are things like all the engineering fields, to be honest, now because of civil engineering for road constructions, things like mechanical engineering, drilling engineers, a lot of this because we are constructing the economies. There's planners, IT, the agriculture, botany, things that you know that you'll be able to get a job wherever you are in the world. Start thinking remote working as well. I've been in the same career. I've been in procurement, supply chain, and logistics within the IT, engineering, and crafts field for almost 18 years. I am very, very experience, but I am beginning to think out of the box because I want the liberty, and I'm going to share with you guys once things have materialized, because you have to be ready for change. It is the only constant in life. So if you're looking to move back and don't want to feel trapped, start preparing your mind for big changes. And the last point is, if you want to avoid this feeling, you must have gratitude right now. If you're not grateful for where you are, look around, because the human brain is often wired to attract only the negatives. And I am on this table. I have learned now to actually journal and write down the things I'm grateful for every day. I'm going to share my journal, a link on my Amazon site, on the journal I use. Honestly, it's just the same thing every day. What are you grateful for? So it's making me to think. If you don't even have a journal, just write down where you are today. If you've been abroad for 10 years and you've even achieved as much as just sending your mom money every Christmas, that is something to be grateful for. If you wake up every day in a warm bed, because even the locals in the countries that were living abroad cannot heat up their homes. If you have had a job that has paid your bills, you have a mortgage, be grateful. I always say that there's no happiness and progress without gratitude, and I'm learning to be grateful. I wake up in the morning and I say, God, I thank you for today. Thank you for even giving me the flexibility to be able to move back and forth. When you start being grateful, you will realize that wherever you are in the world, you will never have that feeling of being trapped, because you have the liberty to live a more fulfilled and purposeful life. But I'll always like to add a bonus tip, which is time. Time is the one thing that you cannot really put a monetary value to time. Time is like happiness. It's difficult to really quantify, but time in this particular video is important, because don't close this video and say, oh, she said it again, and you'll have a chat about it. You talk to some people about it, and then tomorrow you go to work and it's all in the past. No, right now, get a paper and a pen and write what I've spoken to you guys about. Write about where you want to be in 10, 20 years. If you're in your 40s, you're in your 50s, you might want to start even having a plan of when you leave this world, like a will. Do you want to end up in a care home? It might be low, but do you want to? Some people don't mind. Do you want to do that? Or do you want to go back home where you'll have extended family who will care for you, your cousins, your nieces, your nephews? You'll have a social, balanced life. Then write these things down today, because procrastination is the thief of success. Time doesn't wait for anybody. The things that I've been speaking about for 7 years, for example, a YouTube channel. I wanted to have a YouTube channel maybe 8 years ago talking about this. I never did it. Time waits for no one, and there's never a present time like today. So if this video speaks to you and you have always felt like you are stuck, you have nowhere to go to, you're trapped, you're living hand to mouth, paycheck to paycheck, going round like in a hamster's wheel, and thinking that this is me, caught up with 4, 5, 3 kids abroad, you're not alone. And a lot of people like you have started and have succeeded to have the best of both worlds and move back in the later years. So anyway, if this video has meant anything to you, give us a like, share with people who might have the same interest and goals or issues like yourself, and consider subscribing. And if this is the first time that you've seen one of my videos, hello, my name is Lulu, and this is Lulu Diaries, where I share things that I will tell my younger self, and I am hoping to impact positively and share things that I wish I was told 20, 30 years ago. Anyway, as an immigrant as well, we've been talking about the challenges that we've been facing and looking for solutions that are not just practical, but solutions that will last and can be implemented across different individuals. And I'll see you guys in my next video. And if this video has helped, the one I'm going to pin up here will even be more helpful on the things that you should do as soon as you get into the UK. Thanks again, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.